The PlayStation 2 is legitimately one of the best consoles ever made and has one of the largest, best quality, like even the average quality of the games on the PS2 is simply spectacular. We're going to take a look at some of the best RPGs on the PS2. Let's start with number 5, Disgaea, Hour of Darkness. The Age of Demons is here. Well, it always was in the Disgaea universe, I suppose. The Age of Laharl is here. That's not right either. Well, you see, he kinda overslept. I'm sure you've all pressed the snooze button one too many times. Some 5 minutes, some 10 minutes, others 2 years. Luckily, your loyal assistant was there to wake you from your slumber, which, unbeknownst to the young demon, marked the beginning of a great adventure. Over the course of the majority of the game, the goal is simple. Take the throne your dead father left. Along the way, exterminate, extort, steal, lie, and whatever else it takes to get yours. Once there, rule the underworld and protect it from those pesky humans. Disgaea is a neat one. Instead of a more traditional turn-based tactics game, they went all out on the goofiness. For example, each character can be queued to attack at the end of the turn, which can bestow ridiculous combos and scenarios. This is, of course, in addition to the dozens of classes unique with their own beautiful pixel art look, devastating abilities, and strategic role. Also included is a geo system. Essentially, these geo panels affect the battlefield in wild ways, like reducing attacks by a large percentage, or should they be activated, will disappear and deal damage. Otherwise, the general gameplay is pretty standard. The key aspect being touted is the universe created and showcased, not necessarily the mechanics behind it. Disgaea doesn't have the greatest story or the deepest tactical depth, but it's quirky and well themed. It's one of a kind. Kingdom Hearts 2, released December 22nd, 2005. Kingdom Hearts 2 is not just a carbon copy cash-in on the original that broke the barriers between American and Japanese audience by blending Disney and Final Fantasy together. This title instead went forward with the idea to bring everything to the next level with a suite of improvements across the board, including the painstaking, gummy ship sections and the previously rather dull combat. Our story dawns on Roxas, a seemingly normal kid living in a quiet town. What he, and by extension you, don't know is the darkness within his heart. Or rather, the darkness he inherently is. Ooh. I would explain it, but honestly I don't really get it myself. Truthfully, the overarching story is a bit of a mess, not helped by the painfully slow opening. But that's not the main event. Exploring the Disney stories we know and love, mixed with a touch of traditional fantasy is. That's the part that makes the series legendary. Jumping into the combat is as intuitive and seamless as ever. Simply run up and hit something. Easy peasy. Over time, additional actions become available. You know the type. Spells, actions, limit break stuff, the works. New to the series is the context-sensitive action commands. Albeit, typically it's just a dodge. Still though, spicing up the combat is much appreciated after how boring it could get in the first title. Honestly, I dislike the Kingdom Hearts battle system. I've always felt it was a strange half-step between fast-paced hack-and-slash action and the slower turn-based strategy. Regardless, the system does well to bridge the gap between exploration and combat seamlessly. While I don't particularly like the series, mainly because I despise how childish and flat the main characters are, also the combat and the writing and a bunch of others. It's a fantastic title every PS2 owner should own or have at least played. Assuming you can stomach playing the dull as a doorknob Roxas for 2 hours. Oh, and by the way, did you know Sora is voiced by Haley Joel Osment? The Sixth Sense kid! How crazy is that? Final Fantasy XII. Final Fantasy! This is the 12th marker in the series, and it's kind of in this middle ground between the incredibly traditional Final Fantasy X and the more modern, controversial Final Fantasy XIII. In my opinion, that only makes this game better to be able to take from both phenomenal titles. Audiences in Japan were able to dive into the mythical land of Ivalice in February of 2006. This would not be the first time we go to Ivalice, however. Previously, Tactics and Tactics Advance were set in this country as well. As you might imagine, Final Fantasy XII carries similarities in names, races, weaponry, and even summons. And just like those other titles, the land is in turmoil. Dalmasca, your humble abode, has been annexed, and with it a whole heap of trouble. Including, but not limited to, the king being assassinated upon signing a peace treaty, the princess being declared dead through suicide, the captain of the guard being accused of treason, and much, much more. But who cares about all that? You are Vaughn, a street punk. His dreams are simple, to sail the skies on an airship. Simple they may be, but still not an easy feat. Fortunately, fairly early into the game, Vaughn meets with Balthier and Fran, sky pirates. One thing leads to another, and the world is at peace. What happens in between then, you may be wondering? Well, you'll just have to play and find out. Granted, it's nothing groundbreaking or overly incredible. It doesn't have to be, however. The gameplay more than makes up for any shortcomings. Like mentioned before, FF12 sought to cross the barrier between turn-based and a more action-style combat, and succeed, they did. Just walking up to an enemy initiates combat. No loading screens needed or whatever. Then all it takes to achieve victory is your regular action commands, akin to turn-based but everything acting and moving in real time. Expanding usable equipment and in-battle commands is the license system. It basically replaces leveling up by letting you pick where points are distributed, although a bit confusing and unintuitive. Combat is simple really, more action-paced than ever before in the series, but not so much as to scare away the more traditional players. Oh, and you know Dragon Age Origins' phenomenal system by which you can effectively program your teammates? Yeah, they got the idea here. From the Gambit system. It's much more simple than seen elsewhere, but still handy nonetheless. Admittedly, I'm a dirty Final Fantasy XIII lover, but 12 has pretty much everything that makes a great RPG. Great setting, great characters, great gameplay, and of course, great graphics. Dragon Quest VIII. Dragon Quest VIII is the absolute pinnacle, the most complete epitome of what a traditional role-playing game should be. Combat, which goes into a loading screen, is simple. Pick an action, and then it happens. Repeat for literally hundreds of hours. And that's not a bad thing to be simple either. There's no timing systems or crazy background mechanics, active switching, or anything silly getting in the way. Just enjoy the experience. Every character that joins a battle has a relatively simple set of moves that bestowed over time through leveling. And yes, there's lots of grinding. Admittedly, the combat can be a bit dull. Thankfully, the yin to the yang is the phenomenally designed, well, everything. The graphics even today look spectacular. That's vibrant cel shading for you. Exploration is rewarding with new sights, monsters experience, and often items or even story. Regarding the story, you're on a quest, not a dragon quest, but a quest all the same, to return the king and his daughter back to normal. One day they were royalty, the next exiled. All because of the Joker, or Shaco, or whatever. He's a jester clown dude, okay? To get there, you'll explore a metric ton of locations across the far reaches of the globe and the NPCs accompanied by them. That's all well and good, but my favorite part is the sound, both the voice acting and the music. The music is honestly the best orchestral soundtrack in any game I've ever played, and that's saying a lot because I usually dislike game soundtracks at a base level, much less orchestral. But I also like the voice acting, a major complaint for others. Their complaint is my entertainment. Yes, the VO is bad, the accents and pacing is all over the place. Like, why do so many different dialects exist in such a small location? You got Scouser, the poor English, proper English, American English, French, and a jumble of others. But I love it. It's so interesting and different. Like, every new character is a Pandora's box of so bad it's good dialogue. Unfortunately, the whole game is not voice acted, but it's enough to keep me going. Dragon Quest knows exactly what it wants to be and does it. That's it. No more, no less. It may not be a game going down in the history books as groundbreaking or perfect in every way, but it's perfect in being a down-to-earth, role-playing game for all ages. Persona 4. I thought about doing like this whole big intro about what's number one, and it's all suspenseful, but come on, it's Persona. It's Persona 4. In the quiet town of Inaba, where our primary protagonist has temporarily moved, a series of crazy and even world-ending events have sprung into action. With the help of your friends, whom you must save, it's your job to investigate the strange happenings and put an end to them. It's like an adventure and a mystery novel in one. Oh, and make sure to balance saving the world with school studies and social outings. Let's assume for a moment we take out the other half of the game, the dungeon crawling and combat section to be precise. What's left is still a magnificent visual novel. That's what's so amazing about this game in particular. It's like a peanut butter and jelly sandwich of balance between two completely different styles of gameplay, yet they complement each other so well. Anyway, about that combat. It's pretty simple really. Navigate down tight corridors in a maze-like fashion until you get to the next milestone. Along the way, there will be monsters looking to eat your soul or whatever. This engages a familiar turn-based RPG sequence. The major difference is one of the two things. You can chain together attacks that hit a monster's weakness. In other words, if you hit a monster with lightning that is weak to lightning, you get to go again. This promotes more careful and informed play as both a reward and to keep the combat from becoming too dull as to just spam attacks. 2. The Pokemon gotta catch 'em all aspect behind the scenes. Although it should be noted you don't get a full team of Pokemon, it's just the main protagonist. Every other character is locked into their specific movesets, which can be set to AI control if desired. Personally, I don't really care about the whole Persona system. It really didn't hit the same sweet spot that Pokemon does. In other words, in Pokemon, I look to find cool, unique Pokemon with strong movesets across an entire team to effectively handle any threat. In Persona, it's just, take the strongest you can. So in that aspect, it's just a series of direct upgrades, which isn't bad. Really, it's simply a different way to represent leveling up. It's just not my wheelhouse. Persona 4, like many games on this list and on the PS2 in general, is just one of those simply perfect games with no critical flaws to speak of, besides, not liking the genre. It's a game that will be remembered. Persona 4 is a game of a generation.